The CentreSteer Podcast, a Land Rover podcast by Land Rover owners. And welcome to the 7th edition, 007, of the CentreSteer Podcast. Yeah, I just wanted to say 007. I have. We've made it to 7.
You've been waiting for that one.
I have. I am your host, John Costage. I have 3, as I keep forgetting to tell people, I have 3 Rovers, 2 of which are functional. Well, sorry, 1.5 are functional. Disco 2, a Series 3 109, and a Defender 110, which is non-functional.
Mark Garcia, and I have a Disco 2 that's been functional for a record-long amount of time.
And what would that record be?
We're coming up on
a week?
We're nearing a year without any major issues.
Nice. Good deal.
I'm Harold. I'm addicted to Rovers. I own Rovers spanning 4 decades.
I'm Morgan, and I have a 1982 Series 388 that I'm in the midst of a frame over on.
Any updates?
I'm about at the halfway mark. I'm stripping body panels off, all the wiring's out. So, yeah, getting pretty close to the halfway mark, that is.
You're not blogging this or putting any pictures up, are you?
I have plans to, but I haven't managed to fit it into my schedule.
Understood. First up this month, as we like to start off with, seems to be a tradition, is sales for the past month. And Land Rover sales are thankfully up again, and especially in the UK. They were up 11% from this time last year, that would be September. And in particular, Range Rover Evoque is very high, up 35%. The Freelander 2, LR2 here in the United States, is up 35% in the UK. The Defender actually is doing very well also, with a 30% rise from the previous year, and followed by the Range Rover Sport and the Disco 4. And so things are going well. I think these are continue to be good signs. At least they're not losing sales.
I wonder if the Defender sales are up because people are scrambling to get them while they still can.
Very possible. Very possible. Now would be the time. We will talk about that in due course later in the podcast. Next is following along with our discussion we had last month about younger folks seem to not be driving. Land Rover is trying to encourage that.
Yes, I came upon an article late last month, I guess it was, that Land Rover is designing a children's driving school for ages 11 to 17, where they will be paired up in a specially prepared Range Rover with dual controls, and they will teach them basic driving skills and move on to off-roading driving skills. And people are actually cheering this on, and I, for one, agree. I think it's fantastic. Interestingly, while I was trying to research this, there doesn't seem to be a lot of information on it yet. Again, with dual controls, and are allowing kids to drive around at basically a walking pace. But I like the idea.
So normal speed, in other words.
Normal off-roading speed. I'm not sure what kind of obstacles they may have for the kids, but same general idea, getting kids involved in driving and becoming more aware of their surroundings and assessing situations before they do something stupid.
I think it's fantastic.
It's better when they're old enough to be on road.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I'm thoroughly jealous this was not around when I was a kid.
You got to go with your older siblings.
I agree completely.
Yeah, we resorted to less legal methods of learning how to drive at the age of pre-16.
Absolutely.
We resorted to hot rodding the lawn tractor, things like that.
I had a buddy with a junkyard. We frequently found keys for vehicles that would still run. Good times.
You had a charmed childhood.
I in that respect, I definitely did. And sadly, that's really about all I have on it. Is it exists? They're starting it, and so far, people are thinking it's fantastic.
And this is only in the UK. This is not available anywhere else.
Correct. I've only seen it in the UK, and it's only about a month old. The articles I've been reading, so hopefully there'll be more to come.
This is a Land Rover sponsored.
Correct.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
I would pay for that.
I would too. And the one thing I did find a little more information on was the one at our driving experience schools. It's $30. for the kids to do those.
That long?
So I don't care what kind of a miniature vehicle it is. That would be pretty fantastic to stick a kid in there and let him go play.
Say, can we fudge some birth certificate?
I wish, because the cost on those schools are pretty absurd. I think so $30 for the kids to go play is pretty cool.
I seem to recall that just to drive it was $350. Then that was not including lodging.
Yeah,
it was a couple of years ago. It is, yeah. Well, you're at a nice place too.
I often think of myself as 3 16-year-olds in one package, so maybe I can.
$90.
There you go. It's still a
It's still a bargain. I mean,
It's ages 4 to 8.
4.
School.
So I'd have to pay 6 times then. Huh?
You may not fit in the vehicle. They don't show any pictures of it, but some sort of electronic miniature Land Rover.
I'm skinny. I can fit into a lot of stuff.
It's worth a shot.
Next, we're going to talk about the current Freelander, LR2 here in the United States, is to be replaced by a new model, and they're going to rebrand it as a Discovery. So apparently this is a major shakeup in the structure, and I saw this story on Auto Express out of the UK. And the new Freelander, codenamed L550, is supposed to be obviously redone, and they're going to put it under as a kind of a baby Discovery. Not sure.
Is it going to stick with the current Discovery design, where they're squared and boxy and I think very cool looking, or is it going to round off like our current LR2?
Not really sure. It's not quite clear here what is going to it's going to look like. They did say here that the model is a 5-seater. It kind of looks like if the picture that they have here, I think is a mock-up, is credible. It does look like a Freelander, in that it has that kind of classic Freelander looks and proportions. But it'll still be it'll, I guess, just maybe be rebadged, I suppose.
Kind of sounds like they're trying to mirror what they're doing with the Range Rover and having sub-models and kind of getting the Discovery elevated to being like a brand.
Well,
I have heard that tossed around, that Discovery brand, a bit more lately.
Which I don't know. I don't
Begs the question, why?
Why? Yes,
Why?
Mercury's on its way out. Lincoln is teetering as it is. Why? It's not like Land Rover makes that many cars models that we need to have this as a separate line now. I don't get it.
Well, I think it creates more confusion than it absolves.
Absolutely.
The brand name Land Rover and Range Rover seems to be really coming around. There's a lot less talk about dependability and all of that these days. I don't see much point in shaking the wagon now and trying to diversify.
That's all right. My friends are still confused. They still think I drive a Range Rover, and I have to explain to them it's a Land Rover. And I go, "What's that?" And you go down. It's a Land Rover, Range Rover, and then they're the same make and model. And then you throw a Evoque in there, and it's the Land Rover, Range Rover, Evoque. Yeah, I don't get this. I mean, their names do cause confusion, which I understand that, but they could certainly maybe do it in a little different way, and better marketing is probably the only way to do it.
It'd be interesting what they do over here, because they've shied away from the Discovery name, because that seemed to be synonymous with failure for a while.
Yeah. Well, they were
in the marketing people's minds.
And they were supposed to bring the Discovery name back. And last year I thought they were supposed to said, "Oh, we're going to bring Discovery and Freelander back," and they didn't. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, the whole name thing made a whole lot more sense back when it was the Rover car company, and then you had the model was the word that came in front of Rover. That made more sense back then. Now it's sort of lost.
I absolutely agree. And when they create, and then technically a Range Rover was another model, not another make, right. And there seems to be like they're trying to make Range Rover another make, which I can get. It's its own thing, but
it's becoming a separate nameplate.
Yeah, but don't muddy the waters with another make and call that Discovery. That would just makes to me no sense, unless there's a reason for it. But hasn't been communicated. Along those lines, there's also a refresh coming up of the Range Rover, getting my models all confused. I saw a post out on rangerovers.net. Somebody asked about the refresh, and this somebody posted kind of, I thought was a nice, concise article, I guess, I suppose you can call it. A post is probably the better word. And they state that JLR has already stated that updates will be annual now, which I thought was kind of an interesting thing. I'd heard that, but it's nice to see that someone's actually put that down on paper. And that certainly seems to be the way they're going. So if they are going along with annual updates as opposed to what was it before? Decades, yes. It seems to be the... We'll wait 25 years and come out with a new model. Oh, wait, another 25 years, then we'll come out with a new model.
And it's interesting, given that the entire industry is moving towards longer product cycles and longer distance between refreshes, and now Range Rover's decided to go back to what the Americans were doing in the 50s and 60s with annual changes.
Yep.
Bucking the trend can work for you sometimes. Let's hope it works for them.
Well, it might help if it's towards a strategy of selling more, which everything is. But of course, I say that to get away from distance themselves more from the past, and especially in the United States, they seem to have a bad rep for reliability. And if this is a way to quickly get away from that, it might not be a bad thing.
Too much for reliability. It's just going to be a styling change mostly every year, and that will make it fun to try and support when you need parts.
I think it's more of an update in tech. I really, that's everything the things I'm reading here, if to go a little further into this article, was significant updates to the infotainment system, GPS, seat controls would be on screen. There would be a heads up display, heated front armrests.
All that stuff is just styling and cosmetic.
Yeah, right. Yeah, to me, that's the tech in the interior. Improved LED mood lighting, full LED lighting throughout the vehicle range. Now, there are some things like new wheel designs. New interior wood choices. Oh, that's critical. That certainly is critical.
Right up there with the armrest.
It's right up there with the heated armrests. Yeah. It's not just they have armrests, which is an improvement over a series truck, but they are now heated. There is going to
the series truck has an armrest. It's called the door.
That depends on if the door tops are out or not.
Well, you can stick it out the hole. I do it all the time.
That's if you don't cut yourself on the metal.
Make sure you're cutting the shop.
There's supposed to be a 9-speed gearbox, standard throughout the range.
We discussed that last month, I think.
I can't believe. I mean, I get 9 speeds, but still, it seems out there.
Just wait, dude.
Really?
Going to keep growing.
Yeah. Well, now this is called continuous then.
Well, that doesn't work well either.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's okay with engines that don't produce any power, but they don't hold up to torque very well. But as soon as the 9-speed becomes widespread enough that everybody's got them, then they're going to have 10 or 11 just to stay ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's
that goes to 11. I'm waiting for that.
And pause for laughter. So there's also this hot fire JLR engine, which is supposed to be added to the entry-level model. Apparently, it's going to be built at the new Wolverhampton engine plant, which I think we talked about last time they were building. It's supposed to be in the new Range Rover Sport for model year 15. But apparently, we're not getting it here in the United States, if this is to be believed. So that is one thing.
Not right away. It takes a while to certify an engine for the U.S. market.
Do you know what this hot fire engine is? Have you heard of that before?
Not.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't. I wish I'd probably do some research, but that's the first I saw that.
At first blush, it just sounds like a name, but I mean, there could be some technology involved in it. But anytime there's a new engine, it takes a while to certify it for the U.S. market, and then they have to have enough projected sales to make it worthwhile. Of course, if they're selling Land Rovers hand over fist, and Jaguars are selling well too, then they use the engine both places. I would think there'd be volume there to support it.
I just watched Fifth Gear. They showed it here. And they had the new Jaguar Sport Brake, which is the station wagon. It's the XF station wagon. I think they called it the Sport Brake. Ooh, that was nice.
Yeah, it's a
very, very nice
brake with the shoots with rocket power.
Yes, and according to the Fifth Gear guys, it actually went faster than the sedan. Not like super much, but it did. And it was a Nice looking
You know,
vehicle.
a lot of that's programming anyway, so it's not too hard to make it faster if you just intend for it to be.
And now a special live edition of the M Word.
Well, October is National Car Care Month, so I thought we'd just have a little discussion on maintenance. It's an important topic, and if you want to keep your British vehicles on the road, you have to do your maintenance. So people are pretty well up on checking air in the tires and changing their oil and that sort of thing, but there's more to it than that. You want to make sure you've checked all your fluids. You know, with winter coming, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and change everything. Change your oils, change your transfer case oil, and that's an important one because people tend to overlook that. Check your transmission fluid. You probably ought to look at your coolant. That's something that does wear out. You should change that periodically.
Brake fluid?
Brake fluid is a good idea. Actually, technically, brake fluid wears out and needs to be changed. There's an interval in your manual on that. Usually when it's pretty black, it's time to change it. It should look clear. It should be healthy. I read an article somewhere where somebody was testing the fluid with a continuity tester, and it was telling them whether it was time to change or not. I have to look that up. Maybe I can bring that up on a later episode. I tend to do a visual check. Of course, when things fail and they leak out, then you're changing your fluid anyway. So it's not usually a problem with the older ones for me, but some of the more modern ones, it's a good idea to check the fluid.
And Discoveries in particular, you should be checking your air box and make sure the air cleaner is okay.
I hate that air box.
Well, yeah, it is plastic, and eventually plastic does get brittle and it does break. So you should look for bad spots in your air box. You should, of course, check your filter too, make sure it's clean. You get all sorts of leaves and mud and other crazy things in there.
And check to make sure you still have clips to keep it shut.
Okay, good point.
So I guess air pressure in the tires, whatever the recommended one is for, I guess, the tire you're using, right? Is it? So what is it? The air pressure should be what the manufacturer says on the tire or on the door that comes with a car?
I would go with the sticker on the door of the vehicle because the tire manufacturer puts a pressure on the sidewall, but that's really sort of the maximum. That's the maximum amount of weight you put on it and the maximum air you put in the tire. But that may not be appropriate for the size and the weight of the vehicle that you've got the tires mounted on.
But what if you have different size tires than the manufacturer puts on the door?
Well, then maybe you need to adjust it a little bit. But a good place to start is the sticker on the door. And then I would think, depending on how far from stock you've ventured and how much additional load you've put in it, that sort of thing, I would consult with a professional for some advice there on where you should go with it. And then once you figure it out, maybe you should get yourself a new sticker or make some notes somewhere so you know what to go to.
And what about shocks and struts and springs? Is there a way to check those, make sure they're...
But stuff over.
Is it pushing down on the car? That I've always heard that was a good... See how it bounces back?
Yeah, that's a good way to test your shocks. Generally speaking, if you bounce it up and down, which is actually kind of hard to do in a vehicle with heavy-duty springs on it, but if you can bounce it up and down, and then when you stop, if it doesn't settle right down, then your shocks are probably worn out. Worn out shock's going to bounce 3 or 4 times. A shock in good nick should bounce like 1.5 times and be done.
How long does a typical shock last? A couple of years? 10 years? Is there there isn't a time, but...
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on how you're using it, what kind of environment it's in. But I would think more than 2 and less than 10.
Yeah, and springs don't go bad unless they break.
Springs wear out. They get less and less elasticity over time. The metal starts to fatigue, and you can pretty much check that with a ruler. I mean, see if your truck is sitting lower and lower, then your springs are getting tired. Eventually, they will break if you really push them hard. But I mean, if the truck starts bottoming out a lot, then chances are your springs have worn out. Shocks often start to leak before they really fail, so it's another way to check on those.
Speaking on tire pressure, since that's something I've been fighting with, I was reading an interesting how-to regarding figuring out the right tire pressure. And it was start with what's on your doors, chalk a line across the tire and drive.
You're talking on the tread or on the sidewall?
On the tread.
Paint the tread of the tire with some chalk, and then if the chalk is worn away in the middle but not on the edges, you're overinflated.
Then you can see and plus you can see your wear pattern too.
Right, that's well, it's faster than waiting for the rubber to wear down.
And better.
Well, it's a better way to go than driving it for 1,000 miles to see if you're right or not.
Right. And my stock tires, I was running 40, 36, and recently upgraded to 32-inch tires, and that's been my new starting point, is 40, 36, and it's actually doing pretty good now.
40 in the rear?
Right.
Yeah, I have to say I'm pretty bad at checking tire pressure. It's one of my things I set and forget.
Do my little chalk test. How do you feel about doing oil changes by the book on a Discovery?
Well, it depends on how you use it. If you're easy on it and it's all highway miles, then maybe. But I think if you're using your Rover like we do, you should go a shorter interval. I think the interval, I think it's 7,500 miles on a Disco, if I remember correctly. And modern intervals, I think, are too long, and the manufacturers do that because it makes their vehicle look good and on paper that you don't have to maintain it as often. I think 5,000 miles is sort of a good limit on a modern engine. And a lot of guys get the synthetic oil because they think that increases their interval, and you can read the label on the synthetic. You can go 15,000 miles between changes. Maybe you can, but I don't think you should. I think synthetic is good stuff, but I just don't think it's that good. It's cheap insurance to change your oil more often. It's the bottom line with it. If you do your own oil change, it doesn't cost that much. In fact, even if you don't do your own oil changes, there are places that'll do it for $20 now. It's crazy not to.
Just make sure they put the oil in correctly and close up the oil pan.
On the Rave manual for the Disco, the way it says to do the oil change, I'm not a fan of.
Enlighten me.
I believe it said drop the oil, then change the filter. Or drop the oil, refill it, then change the oil filter, which is a messy job if you do it that way.
Changing the oil filter on a Disco is a messy job no matter what you do.
It's messier after it's full of clean oil.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you fill the oil pan and you don't start the engine, you haven't put any oil in the filter.
Well, what I've always had a habit of doing was drop the oil, drop the filter, fill the filter, put a new filter in, fill, and then fill up the oil.
That's a good idea, especially when the filter is vertical. It's much easier to pre-fill it. When it goes in at an angle, you can only sort of half-fill it.
Sure.
Otherwise, you're pouring it all over the axle, just like the old stuff you just took out. So, which, of course, preserves your axle housing nicely for you so it doesn't rust through. But no, I like the pre-filling of the filter when it's practical to do so, definitely. But in terms of whether you change the filter before you put the new oil in or not, it's not a huge difference, although from a practical standpoint, I like to do all my draining before I do all my filling. That's me. I think it's more efficient.
Me too.
So is Car Care Month every year in October?
I believe so. I get emails from various trade journals about it. It's a good time of year to do it.
And that would be for the Northern Hemisphere, because I think it's usually a pre-winter thing, right?
Well, nobody drives in the Southern Hemisphere anyway. It's all jungle down there. We don't care about that.
Actually, that would be cool. Let's go.
Another good thing to check with winter coming is your wipers. They tend to get overlooked.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of a fan of winter blades, but the newer, I'll say monolithic blades, I forget what they call them, but they're the plastic housing with the rubber blade molded into them. They don't get ice buildup like the old metal framed ones did. I think they're a good all-year-round wiper. But yeah. Make sure your wipers are working well. Make sure your blue juice is full. Make sure your washer pump is working. Because when you get hit by a bunch of muddy slush and stuff and find out they don't work, it's the wrong time to have that problem.
Or worse, it smears. Yeah. That's, yeah. Instead of making your windscreen clear, it actually makes it more opaque. Yeah.
I'd say it's a good time to check all of your lights as well. Some are obvious when they're out, some aren't. Your marker lights, your brake lights, you may not notice those.
In a British vehicle, it's a good idea to check that stuff as often as you can.
Daily.
Whenever you're walking on it, just double check. Now, mind you, here in Pennsylvania, we have the annual inspection that addresses all that stuff, but once a year is perhaps not often enough.
I find I make about 2 months before I have some stupid bolt problem. Hopefully, that's corrected this time.
Now, are you changing the fluid in your marker lights too?
I had been, and that was the one that was working. On the last trip, that was the one that stopped working. The other one was working, which makes no sense at all.
It didn't have enough fluid.
It did. The one with no fluid stopped working. The one that had fluid for 4 months had never had an issue.
You want to know why?
It was... Please.
Well, because water displaces oxygen. When it's underwater, it can't oxidize.
It's a good void. Well, this last time around, I redid all the pigtails, and what lights I could, I just swapped over to LEDs. So we'll see if they hold up a little better.
Actually, I tend to just drill drain holes in each of the housings.
Well, I got new housings as well, and sealed them up, so hopefully won't get in there in the first place.
Let me know how that works out.
Worth a shot.
In a month or two, come on back and let us know.
Can we just start filling the light housings with something that's non-conductive?
I did dielectric on both the connectors and the wire plug behind it and the seal around it. So
you might even be able to fill the whole housing with like mineral oil or something like that, which is non-conductive but would help prevent it.
Glycerin, maybe?
That's a fantastic idea. I shall now load my truck up with glycerin.
I think I know somebody that does that. So that's Car Care Month.
And so we've had a few events since our last speaking. Some of them are ones we've already discussed a little. We'll start with the first annual Bensfold Fall Classic Rover Polo, which I believe was sometime mid to late September. I haven't found the specifics on the date. This was, of course, first year. Looks like a pretty fun event, a good mix of Land Rovers all out in a nice field playing polo. So, little kids to adults leaning out the windows with a broom in hand, hitting the ball around. And there were no photos of damage, so looks like it was a relatively safe game.
Is there a mandatory brake inspection before game?
I certainly hope so.
Come on, brakes are for quitters.
I'm not sure how, since there's no video footage, it's hard to say how fast any of the game was. You could just force everyone to play in four-wheel low or second,
That makes sense.
It would be boring, but,
And what vintage of Rovers were they running in this?
Looks like a
it was a full gamut for sure. Early series models. I think there was a Series 1 in there. Yep, there's one Series 1 all the way up through some of the newer Range Rovers.
Well, it wouldn't be a Dunsfold event without a Series 1 or 2.
Exactly. So that one looks like fun. I hope they continue that tradition for a few years.
So it was a driver and a passenger, and the passenger did the ball striking?
Exactly.
Okay, that's an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
When you first mentioned it, I was thinking more of the Top Gear thing with a giant ball and just punting it around with the Rover.
That would be
that would be fun. That would probably require
Rover soccer there, maybe.
Although there was some damage done when they got into that activity.
There's damage done when those guys get going on anything.
very true.
Well, I think that's the point.
So last month we discussed MAR, which was October 3rd through the 6th. Unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of details on that, whether or how many people went or any photos, but it does look like it actually happened this year. So hopefully somebody can send in photos if they went.
It used to be the signature event in North America, but
Yeah,
exactly.
Followed it a bit on Facebook, and there was very little talk of it. Only 2 or 3 pictures I saw.
it's a shame.
For sure.
Seems to be.
Maybe it'll come back someday. Many things do come back from the dead.
They do. They do.
Yep. Sometimes it just needs, a little more faith in the event and maybe new organizers and have a little bit of a rebirth. So this month, the 10th through the 13th of October was the Overland Rally and Workshop, which is put on by Vermont Overland. They've put this on for a couple of years. They had a rally earlier in the year. This one is more of workshop layout, so you can sign up for various workshops. They had some on self-navigation, some on navigating some of the Class C roads in Vermont, which are legal roads, which are no longer maintained. So they're still documented, but you may show up and find that it disappears off into the thicket, and there's, you got to find your own way or have the original map to see where it goes. So some of those are fun. They've got quite a few other small workshops that they put on and do some driving courses as well.
So this is not a strictly Land Rover event, right?
This one is not, but there are a lot of Land Rovers that go. So there were certainly some Series 2 vehicles, some slightly more modern vehicles. But there's a fairly large Land Rover community in Vermont, so this is one of the few events other than the British invasion in Stowe that they can all gather for.
Now, is this meant to be a preparatory thing for the Vermont Overland?
I think this one actually was after the Vermont Overland Rally.
Right, but I'm thinking that maybe it's preparatory for next year.
Oh, I'm sorry, I lost you there.
Was it intended to be preparatory for next year's event?
Possibly. It does cover a lot of the, navigation and safety. You can take CPR courses and all of that, emergency medical courses. So, it certainly would be helpful to cover both events.
Interesting.
Yep. And they actually did have the 1993 Camel Trophy winner there, covering extreme recovery techniques. So,
cool.
Yeah, it looks like an interesting event.
Yeah, I'd be interested in checking out the Class C road part of it.
Yeah, that definitely seems pretty interesting.
Does the C stand for Cowpath?
Most likely.
Curious how much of that turns up on GPS.
I was just going to ask, can you get a GPS file of those?
I don't know if you can get GPS files, but you can just go to the state of Vermont, the transit department website, and you can find all the maps and find the roads that are marked as Class C. So one of the courses they taught was using those maps with modern GPS equipment. So they must have some way of importing them, but I'm not sure the specifics.
Probably manually.
Well, if you can plot out KML points on it,
yeah,
pull it in that way.
Right.
They did show a screenshot of an iOS app where they were importing the map file and marking some waypoints on the map. So I don't know whether they were just marking the corners with GPS coordinates and then going from there.
Cool.
I think we need to go.
I just think we just go to Vermont, period, even if it's not
Agreed.
for one of these Overland events. Do our own.
Absolutely.
The CentreSteer Overland event.
Has a good ring to it.
It does. Maybe in 20 or 30 years. When we get big enough.
When we all have simultaneous rovers functioning.
Again, 20 or 30 years. Yeah. Any other events?
That's it.
We've got Rovers on the Rocks coming up. I think we discussed that a bit last time.
Oh, that's right. Rovers on the Rocks. And there's that, which is in where?
That's Rosh Creek, right?
I think so.
And there's another one that's
Robosonia? Is that what it's called?
Robosonia Trials.
That's more of an RTV event where it's
That's
technically oriented.
Yes.
that's like next weekend, isn't it?
I think it might be. It's soon.
Yeah, we
I know
should.
It's end of October sometime.
We talked about it a couple months ago. We should have probably done a little more research.
Homework.
Yes.
Yeah, well, well, when you don't have a functioning rover that you could take, you're like, nah, Russa.
Take the motivation out.
It does to keep up with you, exactly, because you don't want to feel bad that you're not there. So when we have our own events, or even just going up to Vermont, you should take that. You've talked about that X-Panda cab. You should take that.
It looks like a pretty versatile vehicle, including a roof that I understand can come off and be used as a boat.
A boat.
A boat.
Oh, is that the one video you showed me once where they took the top and turned it over and
it is
paddled?
A couple of guys. I don't know where they came up with the rumor because I'd never heard of it before and really didn't see much reference to it, but apparently they were told that it was built specifically that it could be taken off and used as a flotation device. So they continued to dump it into a lake and jump in with paddles and made it across the lake.
So the X-Panda as an X-Panda-cab. Now that's different than a Doormobile because they look a lot alike.
They do look alike, but yeah, so that's my understanding there.
So,
something different with the roof.
And actually, it's the standard with the X-Panda cab. It's actually the standard series roof. So that's one of the big differences between the Doormobiles and the X-Panda cab. Is that the series roof is what you can actually just take off and is designed as a boat. And the X-Panda cab basically is like a pop-up camper roof, but it's just the hardware and the canvas and all of that to lift your series roof a couple of inches with all the hinge hardware and locking hardware and all of that. And the ability to mount some flooring just below the series roof, and then you can lift it up. Climb into the tent from the hood. And then, so the Doormobile is one where it's an actual fiberglass roof that they design. And I think they cut the original roof a little bit so that you can use that, which is a flip up on the side roof.
Does anyone have the owner's manual? Is this something that they actually put in there?
For a series truck?
Yeah.
I think it might be available somewhere online, but we also have a member in our local club that has done his own version of the X-Panda cab on his 88. He's used that a number of times at different club events.
I was referring to using the roof as a flotation device.
That I've not seen. I've not seen documentation of that. But the interesting thing is I did have something come across my desk this morning. Today's issue of Bring a Trailer, there is a travel trailer called Compact that was made back in the 50s. And there's one on auction right now. And the roof of that was an actual fishing boat. And you took it off. It had little rollers mounted into the body of the camper. You rolled the boat back and took it off, and then you could use that. And it actually came with a folding Evinrude outboard in this little case. You took it out of the box, you folded it up, and you put it on the boat, and you go boating. And with the boat removed, there was a set of bows that came up and some canvas, so you still had a roof on your camper. It's really pretty slick.
Fantastic.
And this one came with a matching 52 Ford station wagon to pull it, and they were both painted identically. It's a pretty cool thing.
Wow. That would be cool.
Very nice.
It's the American version of what you're talking about, but it just goes to show you that idea has been played with for a while.
Sounds like something Jay Leno's going to own soon.
Doesn't he own everything?
That'd be cool.
Well, he seems to own everything. Close to it.
Yeah, but, I'd be him if I could.
Exactly.
We all, absolutely. We all would. I hope he's the one buying some of this stuff.
Actually, I'd love to just hang out in his garage for a while.
Yes.
He wouldn't notice you for a while, I'd imagine.
I don't know.
I think
he's drooling too much. There'd be little puddles on the floor.
Or he has a couple hangers, I think, and it seems like. Well, I know Letterman has some hangers that he had his Porsche collection. At least he used to. He's a Porsche guy.
Actually, just in terms of infrastructure, Jay's got a really cool setup. He's got a really nice building. It's all eco-friendly and solar powered. It's quite the place.
So you're gonna convert your non-existent series truck into an X-Panda cab?
That sounds like a good idea. Maybe we'll do some kind of a hybrid with my Disco.
I've actually considered it for my series truck, but I have the roof rack on it. And there's not really a good way to do it with the roof rack.
might cause a little bit of drag in the water.
True.
Can't this be hydrofoils?
Well, actually, I've heard of stories of people launching their boats in the water and not knowing to unstrap the boat from the trailer.
Oh.
And running the boat through the lake with the trailer still attached.
Wow.
I've heard of it.
Wow.
Not
That's
seen
painful.
it, but I've heard it. And some of the stories sounded like they might have been documentable.
Interesting.
There's always somebody doing it.
So there's, just to be clear, then there's the Doormobile, which was a dedicated, purpose-built pop-up trailer, and then X-Panda Cab took an existing truck and you modified it to use the current existing roof. Does that seem right?
Roughly, Doormobile made the pop-up camper tops for multiple vehicle brands. So they would still modify an existing Land Rover, and they would rebadge it as Doormobile with their Doormobile pop-up top. So you can actually get, VW camper vans that are Doormobiles with the exact same setup.
Okay.
And they would actually install kitchen hardware and all of that. And then X-Panda Cab is basically just the pop-up camper top using the existing roof.
That's the way I took it, that the X-Panda Cab was more of just a kit to modify your Land Rover, whereas the Doormobile was more of a complete RV solution.
Yep.
Did anybody else do anything? Was there Doormobile, X-Panda Cab, anybody else?
There was a third. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Yeah, there was a third that used a more rounded canopy top. It was also fairly common in the 50s and 60s, I believe. Carawagon.
There you go.
Yeah, I have heard of Carawagon, yeah.
Okay, maybe the number for the military, too.
Yep.
The field commander vehicles that you could buy, X-Mod 109s. This big-ass rack out front for all kinds of extra gear they put on it, too. It was a cool-looking thing.
Cool stuff.
There's some information about these different conversions on Terry Ann's site.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's where I saw the Carawagon, yeah.
Yeah, and she drives a Doormobile conversion.
The Green Rover.
That's right.
Very
cool
stuff.
It is cool stuff. And you could also modify Defenders, right?
Yes. I believe they actually started selling the Doormobile roof again a number of years ago for the Defender.
Somebody I want to say it was South Africa, is now doing Defender camper mods, and it looks pretty awesome, actually.
You mean raising the roof and...
Raising the roof, building in a stove, like everything. Pretty slick.
Well, generally speaking, if you can do it to a series truck, you can do it to Defender. The parts are a little bit different, but they attach the same way, so it's pretty much the same mod.
And that kind of, yeah. I'm just thinking that in comparison to the, what's the, all of a sudden it went out of my head. Who's the one, the tent that you just put on the roof?
The Hannibal?
Hannibal's. So it's different than Hannibal's in the sense that the Hannibal just gets bolted onto the roof.
That you just set up, bolt onto the roof or just drop it in your roof rack or whatever. That's a separate tent that just sits on top of your vehicle, whereas this is your vehicle turning into a tent.
Right.
And that significantly raises the center of gravity for your vehicle. Whereas with the Doormobile and the Carawagon and the X-Panda Cab, all of the bulk and weight of the tent and canopy is packed down into the body during transport.
And you could argue there's less weight overall because there's less structure required. You have to have a separate floor and things like that.
Agreed.
You lose headroom when you use an X-Panda Cab or Caraway, or?
Yes.
I would think you would.
Until they're open. In most of those cases, once they're open, then you actually gain the headroom because you can actually stand within the rear compartment.
Yeah, but I'm not going to be driving with the camper open.
True. You can always take the top off your Land Rover if you really want headroom.
But that defeats the purpose of it having a camper on the roof.
Yes.
I'm just thinking that's where like a Hannibal would make more sense, because then you put it on when you need it, take it off when you don't, and then you don't lose headroom.
The Defender one I saw, I think, was more of a clamshell design on the roof. So it would open up like those, but it wasn't opening the interior of of the truck.
It was just
creating a tent on top.
Tent space, right? Which I get. I understand the difference. These specific mods give you that access inside the truck, and then of course a kind of some sort of roof tent. But the other one, an actual roof tent, though, you obviously don't get the space inside the vehicle. I get the difference.
On the other hand, with the roof tent, when you deploy that tent, you have all that space in the tent on top of your vehicle, plus the original space that was inside your vehicle. So overall, you get more volume with that solution than you would with the pop top.
Right. And you can store more pop top.
Absolutely.
Pros and cons depends on what you're doing. If you're driving around a continent and you need to want an easy pop-up sleeper, an X-Panda Cab may be the way to go. But I think for average everyday use and then occasional use of a camper, that may not be the way to go. It depends, I guess, what your needs are. It's a cool kit, though. I mean, there's no denying that.
Well, I like the idea that there are these different choices so that people with different needs can get what they need.
Right. Well, that segues us into a sad topic, as you may have heard, and others may have heard. And we'll go right to the BBC because that's the place to go for the story.
Cue the funeral dirge.
Yes, we should. Emission rules to end Land Rover Defender production. Jaguar Land Rover said it will stop production of its new Defender model in 2015 because it will not meet European laws on fuel emissions. The last will roll off production line at its plant in Solihull, December 2015. 67 years it'll end production, and they will try to adapt to the new emission because it cannot adapt, to the new emission rules.
Very sad.
Yes.
Yeah. We should really just have a moment of silence for that.
There you go. There's our moment of silence.
There are several stories popping up that the Defender will be reborn.
Which goes on with the story that, yes, that doesn't mean it's being eliminated as a model. It's just that this current model style and type, which traces its lineage all the way back to the beginnings of 1948, will no longer be produced.
Which we've seen coming. We've seen lots of sketches of what they think the next Defender could be, and that all could still happen like that.
I don't think it will. From what I've seen, that DC 100 concept, it wasn't well received, and I think they backed away from that pretty quick.
It wasn't well received by me.
Yeah. I remember that.
We can safely say us, I think.
I think so.
It started to grow on me, though. The pictures I saw, it started to kind of, but
as long as they didn't call it a Defender. Let's go right back there again, because it's an okay design. Just don't call it a Defender. The Defender name is great.
Maybe they should break off Defender in its own model, its own mark. Excuse me.
They just may.
And as long as they don't sell them in Europe or the USA, they probably could.
That's true. You're probably right.
Well, it sounded like they were already discussing, several different variants.
Well, I mean, yeah, this article, not the BBC article, but certainly others did talk about. They're immediately saying they are going. Well, we talked about that last month too. They are going to replace it. There is going to be another Defender. It's just not going to be the Defender that we know and love and recall. And
so, really, all this story is accomplishing is setting the timing for what we know as a Defender to be done.
Yes, right. And to be clear, it's not because of the United States of America. Yes, it is the United States of Europe. They're the ones that. Yes. Well, no, they've come out and said they're bringing stricter new car emissions by 2020, and the JLR has said that certain conditions the Defender just won't meet. So they are moving ahead with replacing it for a 2016 launch. And the JLR head of products said the new model will be, quote-unquote, instantly recognized by people who drive the current vehicle, but it, quote-unquote, won't necessarily be cheap.
So it's going to be a hybrid.
What do you mean hybrid? You mean like...
Could it be electric?
Or fully electric? I'm sure they'll have a range of fuel types.
That would be a fantastic answer to your...
I hope they do.
To everything. Like, well, here, we have a new Defender. Say 2012, but it now is electric.
Bring back the the old Defender with the remote emissions package of an electric vehicle.
I see what you're getting after. So you're saying
now meets the standards because power plants are exempt.
Right. Oh, so you're saying if it's a full electric and
if it's full electric, it meets the new emissions laws because it doesn't emit at the vehicle.
Right. Exactly. Well, that would be a cool solution. I don't think that's what they meant.
I don't either.
Yeah, we would have told them. I'm sure they're smart people. I think they've thought of that.
And again, I think it's not just the emission standards. That's just a convenient excuse.
I suspect or that could be the final nail in the coffin. There's probably a bunch of things, but I do recall the hearing in the past. They have that pedestrian safety requirement.
Pedestrian safety thing, the crashworthiness.
And I'm sure, and probably just fuel economy too. It's just one of those things that the current design doesn't facilitate good fuel economy too.
Electric.
But if you went electric, but even still, there's drag on the vehicle. The way it's designed, there's a lot of drag.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, that comes back to how practical you want the electric vehicle to be, which wouldn't be, and that's the problem. But
right.
Diesel electric hybrid would be the way to go.
That would be just like the Range Rover is going to it does. I think we talked last month. Will have a hybrid that is diesel and electric, not available in the United States, but at least
now
the cool stuff never is.
Now, if they were to start from scratch with a new platform, it could be significantly easier for them to go either electric or diesel hybrid or something like that, where not many of the other platforms have they really started from scratch.
I get the impression that was the article I read and then some other articles too. That was the impression I'm getting. They're going to start completely fresh, brand new. There won't be any parts left over from the old model. Like the 3 is there currently 3 left over? 7 or 8. Yeah, I suspect it's going to be brandy new, fresh from the ground up.
Mind you, the lion's share of those parts that didn't survive from the Series 1 were lost in the first generation Series 1 change in 53, and then a big chunk were in 58, which went to the Series 2, and that's really when it got narrowed down to like a dozen or 2 parts. But anyway.
That's cool info.
It's cool that we have the lineage, and I guess they finally decided they've gone as far as they possibly can with the 1948 design, and come out with another one and hopefully get another 70 years out of it.
Well, it's been a good run. I mean, it's pretty amazing, actually. What other vehicle? How many other vehicles have done that? I mean, Corvette, Mustang. Maybe I'm being too U.S. centric.
Not really, because those have evolved quite a bit.
That's true.
Has existed, but very little of the original design is in the new ones.
Good point. Yeah, they don't appreciably look like the original one.
Stylistically, there's been some continuity, but just the engineering underneath it is all different.
911? That's...
Yeah.
Maybe that would be one. And they've purposely kept that, the 911. I mean, they don't mess with that.
Well, they keep calling it the 911, even though underneath it's got a different number on it.
Yes, exactly. Right. So that's... I'm not close enough to Porsche to know if that's truly matches up with the Defender and the series.
It's similar.
Yeah. Beetle. The Bug.
That's still mostly
stopped making
the original, not the new one.
The new one doesn't count.
They do call it the new Beetle.
Completely different car. It's front-wheel drive.
Well, see, I think, and that'll be akin to what's going to happen with the Defender. You'll have new Defender.
You can put a radiator in a car.
Yeah, I think that's going to be closer to what will probably happen. Is they'll continue. The Defender will go out. The new Defender, like you had the Beetle and then the new Beetle. So, but at least they won't take a break, which is nice.
10 years later, they stopped putting the word "new" in the front of it, and now it's just the Beetle.
And it's right, which
actually is a pretty cool car.
It is.
Despite my general contempt for the Beetle, I like the new ones.
Well, it's because it's not the old car.
Well, that's right. It's a new car. It's actually designed by people who know how to design cars, and of course you can get it with the all-important 3 letters on the rear deck.
DDI.
Of course.
And a flower holder. They all have little.
It's a vase.
Yes, they have a flower holder on the dash.
They call that a vase or vase. I don't know.
Technically, it is called a bud vase. But
is that what it is? The bud vase? Interesting. Well, although
probably some 37-letter long multi-syllabic word in German for it, but
that means flower holder.
Yeah,
flower holder. They did
Holder of blooming plant products.
recently deceased. Although they did make it a little more beefy, so it's a little more manly. So that the wheel wells, you notice they're a little more rounded and chunky than when they first came out with the model, because they found that men weren't buying the car.
Yeah, they were a bit of a chick car.
The vase, the bud holder, was, although careful how you say bud holder, because that may mean something else.
It might mean something entirely different.
Completely different.
You never know.
That actually probably would help sales.
They are a little more angular, and they have that sort of that roof chop look to them, so they're kind of a little more hot roddy.
Yeah. So what do we think the new Defender? What's your hopes and dreams for a new Defender, aside from continue the old model? Anything you need to see or don't need to see? Or
I'm excited about some of the tech they've been talking about with the newer versions. Just seeing that in the vehicle would be pretty cool.
It was interesting that design head of products said it would not be cheap. I want to know what necessarily be cheap. Let me be clear. I wonder what that is. We're talking Range Rover prices, or are we talking Disco prices?
Even the Legacy Defender hasn't been cheap for a while either. It's many of the things that made it so endearing to us in a kinder age made it cheap, but in modern times, because you can't mechanize as much of the assembly, it's become more expensive. Mind you, that's the stuff I like about it, and I'm hoping that it, probably obviously won't be the same, and you can't just assemble with a bucket of bolts in the middle of nowhere and 3 spanners, but I would like to see some of the modularity continue. The ability to put different body styles on it. Change the roof out, or go to a hardtop or a station wagon with a few changes. I'd like to see that. Much of what made that particular design
right.
That particular design was that it could be changed.
Well, that would be
available in a number of configurations.
Right. Well, I'm sure. Hopefully, that still will be part of the mix for them, and if they do this from the ground up, that would be included in that. I don't know. I suppose for me, I guess I like you guys. I want to see what the tech is like, and that's kind of the way things are going. I like tech, but again, there is the fact that it's not tech. The current one is not really high tech. It's kind of interesting.
Stay body on frame.
Yes,
I'm not a fan of unibody and heavy applications. I'm not a fan of.
I want to see the sonar. I just think that's pretty fantastic.
I'm certainly hoping for a non-self-driving Defender. I would like to keep driving mine for now.
Well, the one good thing is at least we hopefully should be able to purchase this vehicle the year it comes out in the United States versus waiting 25 years. So that actually is probably one positive thing, even if you don't like it.
You should probably start saving now, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think you should.
You should have started saving 5 years ago, from what I'm hearing.
It sounds like it's... I have to think it prices over any Hawk.
I'm guessing it slots between the Discoveries and the Range Rovers.
That's what I was thinking. So.
It's become their mid-range.
60. So we're talking 60s,
Base.
60 US dollars. That's my guess. And then probably depending what you want to do with it. Yeah, if you want to go full electric, or if you want to go some sort of hybrid or diesel alone. Hopefully diesel's available.
I'm hoping it comes in at least 2 wheelbases.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I definitely would want a 110 diesel. That'd be the ticket.
Hoping that they don't. That's the one biggest thing that frightened me about the DC 100. It was a 100-inch truck.
Yeah.
Which,
right.
The whole point of it was it had multiple sizes, and the 100 in the Discoveries and Range Rovers was in between the two, and so it's too long for certain things and too short for others. So that's why I hope it comes in multiple.
Right.
It's entirely possible that some of the merge of the Freelander and the Discovery would be them trying to solve that 2 wheelbase problem in some vehicle.
That's interesting.
Now, it's sort of unfortunate because obviously we would all prefer it to be in the Defender, but it's entirely possible they're doing something like that.
Well, on the other hand, if that means they're devoting themselves to multiple platforms, that those platforms might be available for the new Defender.
And they did use the Defender, at least overseas, for many different, municipal type of jobs where it was specific built for filling a need. I'd have to think to some degree they have to try and keep that up.
They don't.
Maybe they want to stay in that market.
They don't have to do anything.
I would think they did, though. I mean, what are we going to do?
Well, I would think
They're going to get replaced by Toyotas.
Well,
Haven't
they already have.
in many? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
In many ways, they already have. Yeah, and other cars too.
Right.
I mean, you do see discos as police vehicles, and there's that cool one that they use for the rescue. What am I? Sea rescue. It's called something. I can't think of it right now. That's on the stamp.
That Defender?
Yeah, there's that Defender that's on the stamp. That's the. Yeah,
That's the one you want to paint yours to look like.
Similarly, I have an idea for that. Yeah, but so there are some purpose-built use Land Rovers that are used in those applications. You're right.
By the Defender, I mean, they had the pickups, the tow trucks.
But they're also selling well enough now. They don't have to cater to that business. I mean, that's usually you're probably doing that when you're looking for sales, and then the government is forced to buy your vehicle because you're in the same country, and it helps the locals. But
Well, yeah, back when the government owned the company, they could dictate who you bought it from and that sort of thing. But
Right.
the special vehicle division was kind of an expensive thing to maintain, too.
Yeah.
Cooler than hell, but I can see where that's the first place they're going to cut.
Oh,
They need to shave
right.
cost.
yeah,
You have to think that kind of stirred interest in the public, too. It's like, well, I use this thing at work, and it's fantastic. I want one for myself. You know, we had this in the military. I'm buying one when I get home.
Well, you got to remember it was conceived as a farm implement when it started, so that's just
Exactly.
been the progression of that.
right.
As they gentrify themselves, that sort of association tends to go away.
This is true. This is the last of that tractor ability, the Chelsea tractor, as the Top Gear guys like to call it.
I'm
Yeah.
really hoping that doesn't die.
Well, that's probably the good way
I
to.
think it probably will,
Yeah.
but
I don't see the DC 100 pulling a plow.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was.
When's the last time a Defender pulled a plow or pushed a plow? I'm sure it happens, but I guess my point is,
I've seen it.
but what do people use it for? What are they using the vehicle for? Well, hopefully, this isn't similar to what happened in the United States with the Hummer and the Humvee. You know, the Humvee was a very interesting vehicle. People loved it. Folks use it in military. Why don't we have a civilian version? Okay, fine, we'll make one. But then they screwed it up, and it's now gone because they screwed up, of course, because they made it like a regular car and they had different
they
models.
let
But
General Motors touch it.
that's my point. And so hopefully they, but the reason I bring that up is that shows that, yes, what you think you want isn't necessarily what you really want.
True.
So you say you want, oh, I'd like that so that it can go do this and do that, and I can push a plow, I can tow a farm implement, but how many people are really doing that? And how many people really want that? They still want the comfort, seats, visual display, cruise control.
Yeah,
Nice.
but looking back, who wants an H3 and who wants an H1?
Oh, I never wanted an H3. The H1 was always the ticket. If you wanted anything, you wanted the H1.
Oh, yeah, if I want an H2, I'd just go out and buy a Chevy Suburban.
Yes, if you wanted an H3, go out and buy a Chevy Tahoe. Or, excuse me, Chevy Canyon, the small pickup. But that's what they were. So, yeah, you would want...
But the H1, of course, is politically incorrect now because it's huge and consumes a ton of fuel and that sort of thing.
I wouldn't think. I actually don't think that was necessarily politically incorrect. I simply think people know what to do with it. There was the people that could actually buy it and afford it, and then what were they going to do with it? It was just a status thing. I don't think they were actually using it. The people that were using it were the military, and they got to use it.
Well, and it made sense in that application.
Exactly. I don't necessarily think it was a politically correct or incorrect thing. I think it simply was the actual market demand. There was no demand for that, and it feathered away. And then the 2 and the 3 were all simply about style and no substance.
Right.
And that style ended, and what were you getting for that? You were probably paying a little more for than what you would pay for a Tahoe, I suspect, and probably a little more than what you'd get for a Chevy Canyon. So yeah, but hopefully
Land Rover watched all of that. And
they seem to be smarter than the average American car company. At least they are currently. I'm not sure if they always were, but they certainly seem to be currently.
Possible exception on their annual upgrade situation.
So on that note, we should probably have a final moment of silence. So I want to thank everybody for listening. If you have any comments, please don't hesitate to tweet, email, or send a carrier pigeon, or drive your Land Rover over to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'll meet you and probably buy you a beer, and we can talk about the podcast. So that would be fun. So on that note, we are ending the podcast. Thank you very much, and have yourselves a wonderful day. The CentreSteer theme song, Sunset Rider by the Tritons, is available from Mivio's Music Alley. Check it out at music.mivio.com. Morgan, you with us?
I am.
Okay, we're going to get started. Are you guys ready? At the 6-minute mark, we are starting.